Shana Tova, Ktiva v'chatima Tova. It's beautiful, it's both beautiful and strange to be here right now, isn't it? It's beautiful because in spite of all that has happened since March, all the ways in which our world has changed and the ways in which our lives have changed, the rhythm of our Jewish calendar has stayed the same. Here we are. Rosh Hashanah arrives just as it did last year, just as it will again next year, please God. And all the familiar melodies and the tefillot, the prayers of this season, they're here. In some ways, our calendar this year is an anchor, can be an anchor, a source of stability when so much else has been unstable, unknown, and uncertain. And so it's very beautiful to be here, to be alive, to have reached this moment. Shehechianu. And yet it's strange. It's very strange. We're here, but we're not all here, as we usually are for this service. We're not upstairs on the third floor of the community house. We're not sitting together in the same room, sharing space, breathing each other's breath. We're not hearing each other's voices in song. We're not coming in and seeing the people we love and hugging them and schmoozing until the music starts and we have the cue that it's time to settle down and quiet and start the service. And the service will be different this year. It's pre-recorded so that we could bring it to you on Rosh Hashanah, and there's no minyan, so some of the prayers we won't be saying. There'll be no Torah service in the way that there's been. And so that will feel strange, perhaps, and different, even though we'll be using all the familiar melodies that we do in the mindfulness service. But it's different, and we're missing the way things were. I'm missing the way things were. So it is strange and sad to be here, but to not exactly be here. And this has been a year, and this Rosh Hashanah in particular, where our practice of mindfulness can serve us very well in all the difference and all the uncertainty, and that's why we're here for this service, for this mindfulness service. Mindfulness being the awareness that arises when we pay attention, when we just pay attention on purpose in the present moment without judgment. And so we sit here non-judgmentally, paying attention to our experience, whatever it is. Beauty is here, strangeness is here, joy is here, grief is here. All of these things are here. We meet whatever arises in our hearts and in our minds. We meet all of this with loving and compassionate awareness, just noticing where we are, what is here. We sit present with our experience, not resisting it, not pushing it away, and not letting it overwhelm us. And when we do this, our mindful, non-judgmental awareness and acceptance can bring us calm and can also lead to greater self-understanding and wisdom. And that is what this season is all about. That's what this time of year is all about, is cultivating greater self-understanding, going deep, going inside, finding the wisdom to know who is our best self. How can we be our best selves? How can we connect with our fundamental goodness? How can we live our lives with love and with purpose and with intention? And so mindfulness is the perfect practice for this time of year. Returning again and again to the present moment, being with the experience of what is, and seeing what wisdom arises from that loving presence. So let's begin this journey of going inside, of clearing away the spiritual schmutz that has gathered over our souls in the past year, of wiping it clean, of renewing our ultimate core goodness. And we'll start with a basic sitting mindfulness meditation to bring ourselves into this moment. And then turn to the chant, the words that remind us every day when we say them in the Shacharit service, in the opening service. And we'll say them today. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. Take a moment to settle into a comfortable and dignified seat. Today, Rosh Hashanah, we sit and stand before the sovereign of the world. Let's bring dignity to our bodies, lengthen the spine, hands on the lap or the thighs. Beginning by bringing the attention to the breath, a source of life that is always flowing in and out. Notice how the breath is moving the body. And let your attention settle, maybe on the belly and how it rises and falls, or on the chest and the heart, how it lifts and contracts. Take a minute sitting here, letting the breath anchor us into this moment. And when the mind wanders, as it will, gently, lovingly, non-judgmentally, noticing that we're wandering and coming back to the breath. Neshama, nishima, our breath is our soul. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehora tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. My God, the soul you have given me is pure.
Kol hanshama tehallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. 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 Kol hanshama tehallelujah, hallelujah.
HaMelech is a prayer that's rooted in a metaphor for God as king or sovereign. It's a metaphor which may or may not resonate for many of us in this time. But deeper than the metaphor is the connotation of that word, HaMelech, which really is about cultivating a sense of wonder, cultivating a sense of the presence and living in the presence of something far, far infinitely greater than ourselves through time and space. No one understood this better than Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who taught that awareness of the divine begins with wonder. It's the result of what we do with our incomprehension. Wonder, or as Heschel called it, radical amazement, is the state of maladjustment to words and notions, and it's a prerequisite for an authentic awareness of that which is. On Rosh Hashanah, we turn towards that which is on the deepest level. And Rabbi Art Green invites us to remember that we can have this experience of living in the presence of the divine at any moment. And I invite you to notice that presence with you right now, around you and within you. In the midst of life, perhaps in a great moment of confrontation with birth or death, in seeing great beauties of nature, in love, in sharing with one another, sometimes in profound aloneness, sometimes without any provocation at all, a moment of holy and awesome presence comes upon us. It may come as a deep inner stillness, quieting all the sounds that usually fill our inner chambers. It may come as a rush and excitement that fills us to overflowing. It may seem to come from within us or from beyond us, sometimes from both at once. After such a moment, we open our eyes, and that which we see and hear and know may be just a bit more intense and a bit more real than it was before. Life becomes more animated. It seems an extra measure of energy flows into the scene before us. The world is the same world, but we see it with renewed vision, and that vision moves us to pray in this moment, in this time of HaMelech. Blessed are you, Holy One, eternal, hidden ruler who opens the eyes of the blind to the presence. We take a moment to give thanks to the One who has opened our eyes once again and who enables us in any moment to open our eyes and to see the presence of the One.
המלך יושב על כיסא רם ונישא.
Yotzer or, uvorei choshech, useh shalom, uvorei et hakol, the one who creates the lights as well as darkness, who creates harmony between them, and is the source of everything. We take a few moments here to become aware of the presence of light, the light that surrounds us, the light by which we see and take in the world. the light by which we're able to discern the faces of loved ones, as well as the light within us, the sacred pilot light of our neshama, of our soul, that is ever present even in the darkness, and which we so often forget. And we remember the connection between the external light and the internal light, and remember that we are vessels of light who are here to channel that light back out into the world, to increase the light, the joy, the wisdom, the compassion, the justice that this world needs. Sit for a moment with awareness of the presence of light around us and filling us at this moment.
The blessing that brings us into the Shema blessing of love. It invites us to gather pieces of ourselves that have been scattered. And we have the custom of taking the 4 tzitzit of our talit and bringing them together as we say the words, V'havienu l'shalom, me'arba kanfot ha'aretz, bring us together in peace from the 4 corners of the earth. We are scattered. There is scatteredness, there is fracturedness. There is fracturedness in our individual lives, pieces of ourselves that we have banished out of shame, out of disappointment, people we have exiled from our lives out of frustration or fear. And our world is fractured, deeply fractured. We don't need to talk about all the ways in which our world is fractured. And so as we bring the 4 corners of our talit together and allow the tzitzit to come together as one, and the Shema will be an expression of oneness, of unity, just ask yourself, what part of you is in exile right now? What part of you or a person in your life or some aspect of your world do you want to bring in? What do you want to bring together? What needs to be gathered in peace from the 4 corners of the world so that we can walk in dignity toward love? V'havienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot ha'aretz v'tolicheinu komimiyut le'artzeinu ki el poel yeshuot ata vanu v'acharta mikol am v'lashon v'keravtanu l'shimcha hagadol sela be'emet להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
we have lived through a year of deep brokenness and grief, and for many, a time of great despair. But we belong to a tradition which, as Rabbi Nachman teaches, despair is not an option. We cannot surrender to despair. And we remember to pay heed to the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, who in 1967, also a time of despair mixed with hope, that when our days become dreary with low hovering clouds of despair and our nights become darker than 1,000 midnights, let us remember there is a creative force in the universe working to pull down the gigantic mountains of evil, a power that is able to make a way out of no way and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. Let us realize, said Dr. King, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And we take a moment to notice, to recognize, to honor the instinct within us to preserve hope, to work to bend that moral arc of the universe in our lifetime, even if only a little, towards justice. Tzur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Rock of Israel, rise with our help, with the help of your people Israel, to restore hope and to bring redemption to people everywhere and healing to our broken world. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael, blessed are you, source of redemption.
Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha.
Zochreinu l'chaim, melech chafetz b'chaim. Remember us to life, mystery who desires life. V'chodvenu b'sefer ha'chaim, l'ma'ancha Elohim chayim. Inscribe us in the book of life. Help us return again and again to writing ourselves into the book of life, that we might live in alignment with your will, God. God invites us in this prayer to turn always towards life, towards its pain, towards its disappointments, its griefs, its challenges, its surprises, its satisfactions, its joys, its wonders, to turn to the all of life, the invitation remains present every moment. May we accept this invitation to turn always towards life. May we release our impulse to deny, avoid, to be distracted. May we turn again and again to choose life, all of life in all its fullness. And we might take a moment here to set an intention to remember, to turn towards life.
זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים, אלוהים חיים. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים, אלוהים חיים.
This is the moment in the Amidah service where we would typically recite Le'el Orech Din, this amazing, beautiful poem that contains the line, Havochen Levavot, the one who probes the heart. The Midrash in Kohelet Rabbah speaks about the heart. It teaches that the heart sees, hears, walks, falls, stands, rejoices, cries out in anguish, that the heart can be comforted, feel regret, stiffen up, grow fearful, sad, or full of dread. Our hearts may be crushed or inflated. Our hearts stray and lead us astray. Our hearts can be stirred by love and by gratitude. The heart conceives and invents. The heart desires, wanders, and lusts. The heart can be nourished. The heart can be humble. The heart can be confused. The hearts can awaken, can be aroused by love. Our hearts can love and hate. Our hearts are filled with jealousy. Our hearts can be torn, ripped apart like a piece of cloth. Our hearts are full of insight. Sometimes they burn with fire. Sometimes they are light and open. Sometimes they are heavy like stone. Our hearts turn and return in teshuvah. We can take things to heart, feel reverence in our hearts, express gratitude from our hearts. Our hearts can harden, and they can cause goodness and joy. We can draw deep and speak from the heart. We can inscribe the most important words on our hearts. Our hearts receive mitzvot, opening to holiness. Our hearts make plans and arrangements. They are ambitious. Havochen levavot, the one who probes hearts. Where has your heart been this year? Take a moment to probe your own heart, the cracks and the crevices, the muscle memory. What has your heart done? What has it felt? Havochen levavot, discerning your true heart.
בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה נזכר וניכתב לפניך אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ולשלום. בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה נזכר וניכתב לפניך אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ושלום.
So we're not having a Torah service today because we don't have a minyan here, but I want to offer a few thoughts on the Torah reading for the second day of Rosh Hashanah, because it really is, this Torah reading, a story of mindfulness, a story of waking up, a story of noticing. It doesn't really seem that way at first. This story of a father who is told to sacrifice his son, who almost kills his own child. Doesn't seem that way. But when we consider that the Torah reading on the second day of Rosh Hashanah is really a continuation of the Torah reading from the first day of Rosh Hashanah, we have two stories of a father trying to kill his son. Yesterday's passive, when Avraham sends Yishmael to his death, sending him out to the desert, and today's active, when Avraham prepares to kill his son Yitzchak on the altar. Today's violence is built on yesterday's. Earlier in Avraham's life, there's also violence towards those he loves. Twice he attempts to pass off his wife Sarah as his sister, allowing her to be taken by a local king. He seems to embody a pattern of destructive behavior against those he loves. There's a midrash, a well-known midrash, that hints at the origins of this violent tendency. The midrash describes Avraham as destroying his father Terach's idols. Enraged, Terach takes Avraham to be punished by the king Nimrod, who throws this child into a fiery furnace. But Avraham is saved by the hand of an angel. Sound familiar? A father violently acting against his son, who is then spared by an angel, by divine intervention. Avraham in that midrash undergoes an unbelievable trauma. It's a trauma of being sent to death by his own father. And he internalizes this pain from his childhood. And then in his adult life, he lives out the psychological phenomenon of repetition compulsion, of reenacting this trauma over and over and over again in different ways against members of his family, the ones he says he loves the most, his wife Sarah, his child, his son. But in the Torah reading for today, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, Avraham finally transcends this trauma. He transcends this pattern of destructive behavior, and he does tshuva. And he does this by waking up. Because when the angel calls to Avraham toward the end of our story, Avraham has a choice. He can spare Yitzchak's life, or he can go ahead with what he had planned to do. He can let his son live, or he can continue this pattern of hurt and destruction. And he chooses a new way. Yitzchak lives. Avraham does not kill the one he loves. We have all endured traumas to varying degrees. We've all been hurt. We've all been scarred by incidents from our past. And many of us replay those traumas over and over again, getting stuck in these very deep grooves that are worn by living out patterns of behavior year after year after year. And it's easy to say, this terrible thing happened to me. I was hurt in this way, so I can't help the way I behave. It's hopeless, and it isn't my fault. But Avraham, he was very old when he was finally able to overcome his violent tendencies, and he teaches us otherwise. The story of the Akedah, of the binding of Isaac, is a story of waking up, of becoming aware of our patterns and then choosing to do things differently. And in the next several chapters after this story, Avraham is a changed man. His actions are marked by love and care for his family. When his wife dies, he seeks an honorable burial for her. He goes to great lengths to find a wife for his son Yitzchak. Other midrashim picture him seeking reconciliation with Yishmael. The story of the Akedah, when we read it this way, is a story of hope, of possibility, a reminder that change can happen. And this is our practice. This is the practice of mindfulness, isn't it? It's the practice of noticing, of waking up, of seeing, and then of bringing loving compassion to those places inside us that have been hurt, that have endured trauma, and then say, today I will choose a different path. Today I will do things differently. Today I will choose a new way. I invite you to take a moment to think about what is the different choice you want to make in your life this year? What is the pattern of behavior that has been hurtful to yourself, destructive to your relationships? Where do you want to wake up and choose a different way? In a moment, we will chant a healing chant, a prayer for healing of body and of spirit for those who are sick, for those who are suffering. And I want to first invite us into a beautiful practice, meditation practice, blessing practice. It's a practice of well-wishing toward ourselves, toward others, toward the world. So find again your comfortable and dignified meditation posture. Settle in with a breath or two, noticing again the breath in the body. And the blessing practice is nothing more than repeating 4 phrases in our own minds, wishing love and joy, peace and ease to ourselves and to those around us. So if you like, you can close your eyes or let your gaze be soft. And focus for a moment, bring the attention for a moment on your own self in this moment. Thinking in your mind, may I feel love. May I feel joy. May I feel peace. May I feel at ease. May I feel love. May I feel joy. May I feel peace. May I feel at ease. Expand your awareness now to people you love, friends, family, neighbors, community members, and send them these blessings. May you feel joy. May you feel love. May you feel peace. May you feel at ease. Repeating these phrases in your mind. And now expand the circle of your awareness a little wider, encompassing all people in New York or in the city, the town in which you reside. May you feel love. May you feel joy. May you feel peace. May you feel at ease. May you feel love. May you feel joy. May you feel peace. May you feel at ease. And one last time, expanding your circle of awareness to encompass all beings everywhere. All who are suffering, in need of any kind of healing. Any being, all beings. May you feel love. May you feel joy. May you feel peace. May you feel at ease. May you feel love. May you feel joy. May you feel peace. May you feel at ease. Now we'll hold in our minds and in our hearts, and if you like, you can say the names of anyone you're praying for, anyone who is in need of healing. Could be yourself, people you know, someone you don't know, you just passed on the street and maybe they looked like they needed some healing. And we'll send them these well wishes. Our chant includes the words ahava, rachamim, compassion, chesed, loving kindness, and shalom. So holding these people, their names, their beings in your mind as we chant. Ahava, berachamim, chesed, beshalom, ahava. Shalom, Ahava, Verachamim, Chesed, Veshalom.
The mitzvah of the shofar is not to blow the shofar, it is lishmoa kol shofar, to hear the sound of the shofar. We might think of that sound as a universal tuning fork into which every human being may become attuned and recognize the sound within ourselves in the kol damama daka, the still small voice that whispers within us all the time beneath the noisiness of our lives and beneath the distractions of our lives. It calls us to remember four things. It calls to remind us to wake up, to crack open our hearts when they close, to dissolve and allow our defenses to soften enough so that we might hear and become aware of the presence of the pain in this world, and to cultivate our capacity for empathy, to hear and to take in that pain and to recognize, although it is challenging, to recognize sometimes our part in causing that pain. And third, it invites us to move from harsh judgment of ourselves and others to a place of compassion, to a place of forgiveness, to a place of love. And finally, the shofar, the sound of the shofar, reminds us that listening to the sound of the shofar teaches us to transform ourselves into instruments of love and justice, to become a shofar, to recognize the voice that flows through us as that divine voice manifesting the kol damama daka, the still small voice, and that if we're able to curb our egos, if we're able to open our hearts, if we're able to empathize and connect with our pain and the pain in the world, then the voice that flows through us might be informed by the voice of God and speaks words of justice and healing from a deep well of love. Let us listen, before we hear the shofar, to the kol damama daka, to the echoes of that still small voice humming within us that is ready to be attuned to the sound of the shofar.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
The traditional Musaf service for Rosh Hashanah has three motifs which are usually concluded with the sounds of the shofar. And they remind us of the function of the shofar to awaken us to three things. Malchuyot, to awaken us to wonder. Zichronot, awaken us to how we live on the continuum of history and in the flow of time. And shofarot, to awaken us to our role in being partners in bringing redemption to this broken world. Malchuyot, wonder. Denise Levertoft's poem, Primary Wonder. Days pass when I forget the mystery. Problems insoluble, and problems offering their own ignored solutions jostle for my attention. They crowd its antechamber along with a host of diversions, my courtiers wearing their colored clothes, caps and bells. And then once more the quiet mystery is present to me. The throng's clamor recedes. The mystery that there is anything at all, let alone cosmos, joy, memory, everything, rather than void. And that, O Lord, Creator, hallowed one, you still, hour by hour, sustain it. So let's take a few minutes to sit with Malchuyot, awakening to wonder, awakening to awareness of this aliveness, of the miracle of our capacity to be aware of our aliveness and to rest in the joy of that awareness. The second theme, Zichronot, memory. Through memory, past becomes present, present becomes future, and all is one. The poet David White writes about memory that it is not just a then recalled in a now. The past is never just the past. He writes that memory is a pulse passing through all created life, a waveform, a then continually becoming other thens, all the while creating a continual but almost untouchable now. Memory, he writes, passes through an individual human life like a building musical waveform, constantly maturing, sometimes overpowering. Every human life holds the power of this immense inherited pulse, holds and then supercharges it according to the way we inhabit our identities in the untouchable now. Memory is an invitation to the source of our life, to a fuller participation in the now, to a future about to happen, to a frontier identity that holds them all at once. So memory, whether it is conscious or not, reminds us that we are formed by everything that has come until now, and that by honoring that past, by being aware of how we have been shaped by the past, we have the possibility to create a different future. So we take a few moments here to float in the river of time, to just close our eyes, find ourselves in this moment of time, in this chair, on this cushion, in this room, in this moment, noticing how each breath leads to the next, how the past becomes the present, how the present births the future. We know that had we not been there and then, we could not be here and now. And we could not hope to arrive where we need to go. So as we breathe, we notice how we live always in the realm of memory on this river of time. And the third and final motif of Musaf for Rosh Hashanah is shofarot, in which the call of the shofar invites us to pursue justice, but more than that, to imagine our very selves as a shofar, as a vessel through which the divine can flow. If we take a moment to notice our defenses, that which keeps the world out, and lower them just a little bit. If we can take a few deep breaths and remember to cultivate a little more spaciousness within us. If we can notice our self-focus and let it go even a little bit. If we can hear the pain of others and remember that it is connected to our own pain. If we can access our capacity for compassion, then we can become what is known as clay kodesh. We can become holy instruments, part of a sacred orchestra. We are shofarot. And the sound of the shofar blowing through us is a voice expressing the hopes and dreams and needs of the vulnerable, the dispossessed, and the powerless. The late Congressman John Lewis implored us to lift our voices like a shofar, an image the prophet Isaiah will use for the Haftarah on Yom Kippur. Congressman Lewis famously said, when you see something that's not right, not fair, not just, you have to speak up, you have to say something, you have to do something. And in his final words, John Lewis taught that when we allow the sacred wind, the Spirit of God, our very breath, to flow through us, we are guided by what he called the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love. So let's take a few moments to imagine ourselves right now as a shofar with a narrow opening at the start, a wider opening at the end, and beautiful bends throughout to create a deep sound. As the shofar is hollow, may we empty out our egos. As it expands from the mouthpiece outward, may we expand our vision, tempering judgment and constriction with wisdom, and balance, and perspective. And as the shofar expresses the voice of God, may that voice, as it passes through us, bring forth from us words and deeds from a deeper and wiser place within us, from a well that brings blessing and healing. We take a few moments to breathe through this shofar that is our bodies and set an intention for this year that this might be so. Ken Yehi Ratzon.
About a year ago, last Elul, in a meditation group that I'm part of, somebody said that an interesting kavanah, a powerful kavanah for this time of year would be to wake up every morning and say, today might be the day that I die. It was very powerful, and I wrote this down and I put it up in the mirror in the medicine cabinet in my bathroom, so I see it whenever I look in that mirror. And I know it sounds a little morbid, but there are really two important things about it. And I want to share why it's been so powerful for me and how it connects really to some of the themes of this season and to the prayer, Untitled Chapter. First of all, it's true. I don't know when I wake up in the morning if today will be the day that I die. None of us do. We don't want to think about this. We really don't, most of us. But we don't know. And so being reminded of that truth every day when I look in the mirror and I see those words is a reminder of my own impermanence, and really the impermanence of everything. And seeing that sign also makes me think, how do I want to spend my last day? How do I want to behave today if it were really my last day? This is an intention. These words are an intention, helps guide the way I speak to my family, the way I spend my time. It's sobering, it's humbling, and it's clarifying. To live today as if it were my final day. Do I really want to spend today worrying, stressing over how many emails are in my inbox? Do I really want to spend today with a little ball of anger in my stomach over socks left on the floor or the mess in the living room? Today might be the day that I die. This is really what Untitled Chapter is meant to do. It is an incredibly powerful prayer that speaks to this very notion that we don't know what will happen in the coming year to us and to others. And it is painful to think about. It can be painful to think about, deeply uncomfortable. It's not what most mortal human beings, it's all human beings, it's not what we want to think about. And yet here it is, a prayer that says, today might be the day that I die. I am impermanent. How do you want to live your life in the face of that impermanence? So returning to our meditation posture, grounded yet dignified, I invite you again to close your eyes or let your gaze be soft as your hands relax on the thighs or in the lap. And you bring your attention to the breath. Slowly become aware of the impermanence of your breathing. Each breath is different from the one that came before. Once you breathe in and breathe out, that breath is gone. You're breathing in different air with each breath. Your body is changing with each breath. Each time you inhale and exhale, there are different sensations around the nose and the mouth. The lungs expand and contract. Your abdomen rises and falls. With each breath, there is change and flow. Bring your attention now to some of the other changes that are taking place in your body in each moment. Your legs and arms, your head, skin and blood and organs, bones, nerves and muscles, and these are all made of smaller parts all the way down to the cellular level. Each moment, your heart beats, your blood flows. There's energy going from cell to cell, nerve to nerve. And then each one is different from the next. On a cellular level, cells are being born, moving about, dying, and disintegrating every moment in the body. Change is constant in our bodies. Turn your attention now to your mind. Thoughts, perceptions, feelings, memories, images, one following the other, following the other. Spend a few minutes just observing that flow, the ever-changing thoughts and experiences of the mind. You might imagine yourself looking out a window onto a busy street, watching the thoughts go by like cars, like passengers, pedestrians. Noticing the thoughts that come, then go. The impermanence of the mind. Now begin to extend your awareness to the outer world outside of your own body. Thinking first about your immediate surroundings, the chair that you're sitting on, or the floor underneath your feet, the walls and the windows and the ceiling in the space that you are in, the furniture, the other objects in the room. Consider for a moment the fact that each of these things, though they may appear solid, and static. It's actually composed of tiny particles, atoms and molecules that are ever moving, constantly shifting, changing. Stay for a moment with this awareness of the impermanence of the seemingly solid objects that surround you. You can begin to allow your awareness to expand further outward beyond the walls of the space that you're in, thinking about other people. Their bodies and minds, like yours, are also constantly changing. And of course, the same is true of all living beings: animals, birds, insects, plants. Expanding now to an awareness of all the inanimate objects in the world and in the universe even. Buildings, roads, cars, trees, mountains, oceans, planets, stars, the sun and the moon. All of these things composed of atoms and minute particles that are always shifting, changing every millisecond. Nothing exists without changing. Become aware of the fact that all of these things, though they may be here now, will not always be here. Mountains may crumble, buildings are torn down, stars die. Everything in this universe, including us, is impermanent. Even our breath, returning to our breath, each breath is just this breath. Return the awareness to the breath now. And with each exhale, you might even say to yourself, just this breath. And now, just this breath. This is the truth of human existence, of all existence. Impermanence. Today, I may die. I am impermanent. How do I want to live with the knowledge, the awareness, that wisdom? This is the message of Untitled Chapter. And having connected now with our own impermanence and mortality, we take a moment to remember those who have died. Whether you are marking a yortzeit today or in a period of mourning, I invite you to bring to mind the people you're remembering right now, even say their names out loud. We don't have a minyan in this space as we're recording this service, so there's an alternate Kaddish that I will recite. And please feel free to recite along. גלוי וידוע לפני בורא עולם, שרצוני לומר יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, אלא שאין עמי 10 שיאמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. ובכן ישתבח שמך ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, בשעה שישראל משבחים אותך בבתי כנסיות, מעל לכל ברכתה, שירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה, יהי רצון שתתקבל תפילתי לפניך, ותיתן לי ולכל ישראל שלמה רבה וחיים טובים, וכן יהי רצון, ונאמר אמן.
As we conclude, we invite you to rise in body or in spirit as you're able. We end with these words of Psalm 47. Allah Elohim bitruah, Adonai b'kol shofar. God ascends in truah, Adonai in the call of the shofar. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nachman, interpreted these words as follows. He said, when the Holy One sits on the throne of Din, Kiseh Din, God ascends with Din, with judgment. We know this because the psalmist says, God ascends with the truah. But when the Jewish people take their shofarot and sound them before the Blessed Holy One, God stands up from the Kiseh of Din and moves to the Kiseh Rachamim, to the throne of compassion. Over these 10 days of Tshuva, this extended spiritual retreat in which we are engaging, the transition is from judgment to compassion, from constriction to expansion. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Nachman says, God is filled with mercy and has compassion for all, and switches from Midat Hadin, from the attribute of judgment, to Midat Rachamim. When does this happen? In the 7th month, now. So as we move from Rosh Hashanah through these Aseret Yemei Tshuva of turning, the movement within is from harshness to compassion, from harshness towards ourselves, towards self-compassion, from harsh judgment and grudges towards others, from our resentments towards forgiveness, release, and letting go. For those who participate in the ritual of Tashlich, on this 2nd day of Rosh Hashanah, we cast away that constriction, that judgment, those resentments, those regrets, and we move more fully into a mode of compassion, connection, and love for ourselves and for each other. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be our will and God's will that we move towards Rachamim, towards compassion always.
Hey, 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 hey. Yeah.